The Saskatoon North Regional Plan is underway, and I've asked Alex Fallon to come in and give us some background and some planning that's already been underway to give us a bit of an update on what's happening. Alex, thank you for taking time out today.
Thank you.
Maybe let's talk about the origin of this and yourself and how you came to be involved with this role.
Absolutely. So obviously my day job is the CEO of the Saskatoon Regional Economic Development Authority. And SREDA a couple of years ago was asked to act as the independent chair for the regional plan. So I chair the committee that is looking at developing the plan. And the plan is really being put together by the partners, the City of Saskatoon, City of Warman, City of Martensville, Town of Osler, and the arm of Corma Park. So SREDA's role is really to help facilitate the planning process.
How long has this been underway? There's already been a number of meetings held up to date, but when did this initially start?
Yeah, absolutely. It's about a year and a half ago, and we made tremendous progress over that time. And the current time scale sees us wrapping up this project, or at least this phase of the project, in April 2017. So a few more months ahead of us.
We've had an open house here in the middle of January, and a report coming forward, I guess, taking that information and regurgitating that back in the form of a draft. That'll come out when?
That'll be released probably in the next month or so. So you're right, this project's been ongoing for a while. We've had a couple of opportunities for the public to provide their feedback, and we had an open house earlier this week. And it's important people provide their feedback. This regional plan is important for the whole Saskatoon region, especially the north, and encouraging the public to learn more about the regional plan, how it affects them, and also provide their input.
With a number of people maybe living in, Lakeview or Fairhaven or Montgomery, they might say, well, that's the north and I don't live there. I think it's important for everyone to kind of have a say in this because it is such a large area. We're going up to Osler and branching out in terms of, it's now called the Saskatoon Freeway, not the Perimeter Highway.
Right.
Just identifying those corridors, how will something like that help?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, this is a long-term plan. We're looking at how Saskatoon and the Saskatoon region grows over the next 60 years and looking at growing to about 1 million people far off in the future. So, it does have a focus on the areas surrounding Saskatoon and the north and the city of Warman, Martensville, and those other areas. But it's important for all citizens to provide their input because it really does affect the future of the region and what type of region we're going to have in terms of population growth, jobs, green areas, agriculture, land use, where do we want new neighborhoods, where do we want industrial, commercial parks. So it really sets a vision for the Saskatoon region in the future, and that's why I think it's important that everyone provides their input, even if they're living in a kind of an existing neighborhood.
When we see some of the things that have happened in Calgary, we keep talking about that magnificent growth that we've seen over there. It seems far-fetched, but when you look at how fast Martensville's grown and Warman, add to that, Osler, we've got to be factoring in things like transportation, circulating through these areas. Is that included in that, or are you looking for ideas at a higher level, or just intricate details from the everyday citizen?
Yeah, no, the plan does take into consideration kind of once we have our land use map, what's the best way to provide servicing to those growth areas? How do you provide infrastructure? And getting that right is an important part of the plan. And you're right, this plan is all about how do we grow together across the region. If you look back over recent years, all these areas have grown, and they've been some of the fastest growing cities and towns and regions in Canada. And they're starting to get closer together, and that'll happen more and more over the coming years. So I really applaud the leadership of the elected officials in each of these municipalities who have come together to work on a plan together. Because the worst thing would be each community to continue planning and growing on its own, and then you get these issues of urban sprawl and poor planning. And so the fact that they've come together needs a little bit of give and take. To work together on a regional agreed plan to growth is important because it'll help us grow, and it will also help us grow in a very thought out way and avoid mistakes with roads, infrastructure, servicing neighborhoods, and avoiding urban sprawl. So it's really important to the future of our region.
I've heard it said that you can't stop a river. So if the growth is continuing, there's no shortage of people wanting to move here. So in terms of recreational services, and I like the idea of the 5 municipalities kind of coming together and saying this, acknowledging that it is happening. So things like grocery stores and services and amenities and hockey rinks and soccer pitches and so on. Are you looking at in terms of funding, or just at this stage using a blanket approach and saying these are the general areas for industry and noise and fumes, recreation, housing, commercial? Is that at the stage we're at right now?
Yeah, you're right. At this stage, it is a bit of a high-level plan and land use map that looks at the types of land development we need and making sure we get that right mix of where's the industrial development going to go, commercial development, where's the urban, residential, country, as well as looking at what areas need to be protected from an environmental perspective. And maybe those areas could be used for recreation, trails. And so we have a green network study area that is shown on the map, and that area will be used for that type of environmental protection. So, and then further down the road, once you start looking at more detailed levels of planning, that's where the decisions will come into about where do we put recreational facilities or housing developments. But certainly the land use does try and set aside those different types of categories so that we know roughly where those types of developments will go.
So no one should get that excited about buying this parcel of land because there's going to be a hockey rink here or something like that. This is just a zoning type of...
Well, that's right. At this stage, it's a little bit more high level and land use, and doesn't change zonings at the moment. So that's off into the future.
I guess that's why they call it a plan. I'm going to plan for that.
Exactly.
What kind of timeline are we looking at? People can see on the map the Saskatoon Freeway. We've identified the corridor. And that's a provincial highway network, so that'll be up to the province to decide in terms of when that would actually start to be built, or do we have an idea when that would start?
Yeah, it's good. Glad you raised that, because that freeway definitely is an important infrastructure piece to this regional planning process. It is being managed by the provincial government and the Ministry of Highways, so it's kind of outside the scope of this regional planning process. But we have marked on the map where we expect that to be, and from our perspective, once we get clarity on the final decisions with that project, then it'll be incorporated into the planning.
I think that's important to note, is that even the RM itself is identifying that corridor, so they would be reluctant to issue permits for, single-family homes or somebody wanting to build a garage or something there. If we look at maybe a 5-year window, what would you see happening between now and, let's say, 2022? Mm-hmm.
Well, on this plan, some of the key upcoming stages would be the governance. So once we have this regional plan, once this committee is finalized with it, it would then go to each municipality's council to review it and potentially approve it. So that'll take some time. Then we need to look at how do you kind of govern that plan going forward. So do those 5 partners come together to form a planning commission, and how would that operate? And then it looks at how do you implement the plan, how do you review applications for zoning changes or developments. So there's still a lot of work to be done, and looking forward to that work starting in the future.
A bit of a joke out there that how soon will it take before Martensville annexes Saskatoon? But if we look at some of the areas that are continually being expanded upon, the governance process would come into play. So is it a matter of the city annexing the RM land? And I note that there's only about a mile between Warman and Martensville. Do they just keep growing and become one, or how do you see that coming to play?
Yeah, hard for me to say. That will ultimately be a decision for those different city councils depending on the area in question. But I think this regional planning process we're going through is really aiding those discussions and getting councils to think about that growth in the future and where they're going to have to work together on different pieces of land and in what areas they're going to grow.
When we see the draft coming out, maybe in March, let's say, of 17, you've had some public consultation already. Does that go back to the public to say, here's what we heard, and here's the direction we were going here, but now a few degrees off because we've had more input, and identified some things like that?
Yeah, very good point. Absolutely. A key point is that this is very much a draft land use map. And we've had a lot of feedback, and we hope to get more feedback over the coming days. And all of that from every person who provides their feedback will be taken on board. And absolutely, there's potential for different parts of this draft land use map to be tweaked, to be changed, for the feedback to be taken on board. And that's one of the reasons why it's so important that everyone provides their input, because absolutely it'll be taken into account. And I wouldn't be surprised if there are minor tweaks to the land use map before it's finalized.
How can we encourage people to get involved in this process? Sometimes people will, coffee talk type of situation where, well, my opinion will never matter, or they won't listen to my opinion. How can you encourage people to actually get online or come out and be heard?
Yeah, a couple options. I'd say the first is always that option to contact your local councillor and share your views with them, and they can certainly pass it on to the regional planning team. There's also a great website, partnershipforgrowth.ca, has all the information you need about the regional plan, including the land use maps, background information. It provides an opportunity to provide feedback online. It's got some frequently asked questions. So that's a great resource. And failing that, by all means, people can contact me, and I'll certainly make sure that we pass that feedback on to the planning committee.
Well, Alex, I know that it's a 60-year plan growing to 1 million people. I don't know that I'll be around to see that, but I think just knowing that the plan is being talked about and worked on, and someone like yourself is guiding that process, is invaluable. So I want to thank you for all the work you've done, and wish you every bit of success with this.
Well, thanks very much for the opportunity to share more about the plan.
Perfect. Thank you. We'll be right back.